I'm Rabbi Patrick, and welcome to Kihila. It's like I can't believe that the holidays are over now, like that we're in the month of Cheshvan, which is an amazing month because it's a month where we don't have anything that we're supposed to be doing, except for Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh and all of our other responsibilities. But like we don't have some other thing, right? Like we don't have to build a hut in our backyard or fast for some reason, right? It's just a thing, Cheshvan. So that can lead to a crisis of meaning. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the American crisis of meaning. Before I set our opening intentions, our opening covenant, a few things for you. So, Rebbetzin. She's doing a Jewish prayer boot camp. So here's how this works. There's a bunch of sort of recordings and things like that that she's going to send out, and you're going to listen to them, watch them, all of that good stuff, read everything. And then there's going to be a class Thursday, November 6th in the evening at our house. And she's going to teach you stuff. So you're going to learn some things on your own and you got to do the study in advance. And then you come to our house and you could be someone who can follow along in a Shabbat service, and maybe not everything, maybe just the stuff we do at Kihila, right? The sort of small stuff. But you could follow along and you'd get what it's about. And you could even be someone who could lead it. So that's how that works. So Rebetzin's Jewish Prayer Boot Camp. Very, very excited about that. Thursday, November 6th. And then home hosted Shabbat the next night. Dinner and service at Ellen and Ross's. You met Ellen and Ross at the holidays. They're some new folks that we just love having in the community. They live out in Short Pump, so we'd love to have you for that. Friday, November 7th. And hey, think about it. If you learned a bunch of prayers the night before, then yeah, you should definitely come to the Shabbat service. That makes sense. And then how about the next day? How about Shabbat morning, bagels, and Torah study at our house in Midlothian, Saturday, November 8th. So you got some stuff to do. You got a nice little weekend there. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There's at least one thing that you could find that you might like to do. We'd love to have you. So let's get into this a little bit here. Our opening covenant, our opening intentions. What are your intentions right now? Are you searching for spiritual wisdom? Do you need an exit ramp from the holidays? Do you need something to keep the momentum going, right? The holidays were amazing for you and you're not ready to give it up, right? Whatever your covenant are, wherever you are, whenever you are. Listen to these words while you take a deep breath and you give it an exhale. These are the words of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory in his writings, Letters to the Next Generation, number 2. The Hebrew word for crisis is mashber, which also means a birthing stool. In Hebrew, crises are not just opportunities, they are birth pangs. Something new is being born. That's why Jews have survived every crisis in 4,000 years and emerged even stronger than they were before. Cool stuff. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. You should just go on YouTube and just search Sacks, Sacks, Jonathan, Rabbi. You don't have to put Lord in there. He was British, so he was given a lordship. But anyway, yeah, he was the chief rabbi of the UK for a time. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, great writer. There's something deeply Jewish about the idea that a breakdown leads to a breakthrough. For those of you who work in psychology, you're like, okay, where's he going with this? Maybe our most painful moments are actually labor pains for something being born. And that might be the best way to understand what's happening right now, not just in America, but all over the world and perhaps even in your heart. And it's a crisis of meaning. So a couple of stories. These stories are 20 years apart from each other. So I have these two friends. Both were raised in a church. Okay, so not Jewish. Smart, funny, beautiful human beings. One I met in my very early 20s. And we're driving around in a car. Because like, what else will we be driving in? But we're driving around in a car, and I want to say it was like really late at night. And I don't know, did we go out that night? Did we go to a concert? I don't even remember. It was so long ago. And we're talking 20 plus years ago. And some stuff was happening in her life. She was having some relationships that just weren't working out so good. And she kept falling into these same patterns, these same pattern bad relationship situations. As the kids would say, situationships. And we were just driving around, and at a certain point, she started talking about how she wished she still had church in her life. And I asked her about that, and she said, well, she grew up Pentecostal, very, very strict religious background, lots of, exorcising demons type stuff, holy roller type stuff. And, she didn't miss that, right? She left that behind. But she missed having that moral guide, that certainty, that thing that you were supposed to be, that thing you were supposed to do. She had entered her mid-20s and just didn't have that anymore. So life was just kind of open. You could do anything you want, which sounds really freeing until you've actually lived it. Um, and for those of you who get where I'm going with this, like, you have all the freedom in the world, but you just don't it's like it doesn't do anything for you. Like, it's, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like it sounds better than it actually is, maybe. Maybe that's a way of thinking about it. But that's where she was. She never went to church after that conversation, at least not that I know of, but there was just that sense that something was missing, that focus, that guide, that whatever it is. So then you fast forward about 20 years later, and I've got this other friend, this time a guy, and boy, is he doing well, like on paper, like house, money, the whole nine yards, like very well known in his career, really just kicking it, Um, and someone who probably wasn't destined to do that well, but is just doing like beyond what I can possibly like I cannot even begin to tell you like how well this person is doing. And so he says, like, it just seems vapid. Like, it just seems vain. It seems pointless. And, you got friends, which is great. And, you got hobbies, which is great. And you have the job, right? And everyone respects you in that job. But yeah, that's it. It's like how many more vacations can you take? How many more things can you buy for the house? How many more, pieces of jewelry or whatever? Like, how much more can you consume before you realize it's just as Ecclesiastes would say, as Kohelet would say, it's hevel. It's like this kind of pointless, breathy nothing, right? This vapid, vain, whatever you want to call it. So he talks about, yeah, sometimes I wish I could just go back to church. Like, I could just be in that. Um, don't know if he ever went to church or not, after he said this, but both of those stories are incredible. And I think it's good to kind of give a non-Jewish context for that. Because I think we're all going through this, right? The crisis of meaning isn't specifically a Jewish crisis of meaning, although it's certainly there. Um, so let's talk about the crisis of meaning some more broadly, right? Let's really, as Javon would say, let's get into it. So there are sociologists who are calling this time that we have right now the meaning recession. A 2021 Pew Research finding showed that people are losing their sense of meaning, their belief that there is meaning in family, relationships, health, financial well-being. And these are being swapped for institutions, which you would think that maybe we're in a post-institution era. So maybe this sounds good on some level. Maybe we're sort of taking away from the private and we're moving more to the public. So you could see it in a positive, I guess. But the problem is, if you look at those people who feel like these institutions, right, like government and the social safety net and all of these things are more meaningful to them, half of those people say that these things are bad. Okay, so I want you to really think about that for a minute. So a larger and larger number of people are seeing government, politics, the social safety net, social institutions, and the public sector as being more and more and more meaningful. However, half of those people don't think that those institutions operate well, operate morally, operate efficiently, or in a way that is helpful to them or to people they love. Okay. So think about like it's like a train that's moving and you're like, "Oh, that's great. The train's moving," but it's moving towards a brick wall. That's kind of where we're at with some of that stuff. Um, yeah, it's tricky. Half of these people who say this, they say it's bad. In other words, politics is becoming more meaningful than family, but we also hate politics. um, in this Pew report, this one woman talked about there's the sense that there's no light at the end of the tunnel, right? So the tunnel's incredibly important, but there's no light at the end of it. Ugh, yuck. Another way of thinking about it, meaning isn't necessarily about hope. So meaning in this case is about relevance. Is your family, your health, your financial life, your career, is that highly relevant to your life? Um, so less and less if you look at this particular report. Now that's 2021. Now let's fast forward a couple of years later. Pew Research does another study, a little bit of a different angle. So not focusing on what's relevant to your life, but where do you get meaning from? Okay, so that's a different thing, right? The first time they're using meaning, it has more to do with like sort of sense of what's like relevant and valuable. Okay. Now we're going to talk about actual like capital M meaning, capital T truth type stuff, the real kind of religion stuff. Okay. So 2023 Pew report found that the majority of Americans don't think a meaningful life can come with marriage and kids. Yeah. I'm intentionally kind of just sitting down for a sec on that one, right? I'm kind of letting that marinate. 71% put having a career you like at the top of the sort of meaningful life food chain. Okay. So, spouse, children, meh, less important when you consider what a meaningful life can be. A career that you enjoy, where you derive purpose. Oh, yeah, 71% would say that. Now, I get what you're about to say. You're about to say, oh, this is like a male female thing, right? Like women are going to say that marriage and kids are better, and guys are going to say that the career stuff is more important, right? Okay, I get where you're going with this, friend. Guess what? It ain't true. And it's inverted by a tiny margin. More women say this than men, that career is what's really going to bring you that sense of meaning. Yeah. So that's where we are now. And by the way, think about it this way. When like the economy is all screwed up and people are upset about the prospects of getting a job and these institutions that are supposed to help you to get a job, right? Like education, formal education, right? We're all mad about that. So we've decided there are certain things that you derive more meaning from or that could be resources, could be like wells filled with meaningful water, right? I don't know, I'm making this metaphor up on the spot, right? But then we pull it up and the water's disgusting. Yeah. Right. Like think about that for a sec, right? Oh, 71% having a meaningful career you enjoy, and also all of the ways to get that are terrible. Or at least 50% of people would probably say something like that. How that's unsustainable, right? Can we all agree that's unsustainable? That's not going to work. So let's look at maybe a completely different view. So if you look at these, there's a certain kind of person who believes that their life has purpose. And here's who these people are. They're people who are typically more religious, people who volunteer more often, people who are older, people who are more engaged with family and friends. If you're one of these people, religious, maybe a little older, but not necessarily, doesn't have to be that. But the kind of person who's religious, volunteers, engage with family and friends. And by the way, religious just means you like participate and stuff. It's not a question of belief. It just means like you would say that religion is important to you, right? And that can mean anything. That's a bit of a Rorschach, you know. Um, but those are the people who believe their life has a purpose. Now, here's the thing: correlation and causation are two different things. So it could be that the more religious you are, the more you volunteer, the more engaged you are with family and friends, the more likely you are to believe your life has purpose. Or could be the other way. It could be that if you're a person who believes your life has purpose, you will spend your time doing more purposeful things. Like, for example, giving up some time to participate in spiritual community and volunteering with that, right? Um, Engaging with family and friends in some way. Like you will make those sacrifices because you're a person who believes that your life has purpose and that you have to do that stuff as part of purpose. And so then when the Pew Report people come around and knock on your door and they say, well, do you participate in religion? Oh, yeah. Do you volunteer? Yeah, yeah, volunteer. Do you spend time with family and friends? Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Do you believe your life has purpose? Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's how that would lend itself. As opposed to they knock on your door and they say, does your life have purpose? Yes. Are you religious? Yes. Volunteer. Right. You get it. Right. So perhaps meaning is less about kind of who you are, even. Maybe it is what you do. Maybe ultimately it's about an orientation towards life. I spoke about Rabbi David Wolpe over the holidays, and he said this idea of like religion is an orientation towards life. So maybe there should be an orientation of purpose. Yeah. And maybe with purpose can come meaning. Okay? You see where I'm going with this? Like maybe we spent all this time trying to figure out what we are, right? We did kind of the go inside your head and analyze ourselves and try and figure out why we're anxious whenever we're around squirrels or whatever, right? And we go deep and deep and deep and existential and yada yada and what is my, right? All that kind of nervous, anxious, therapeutic stuff. We went so deep in our heads, right? But maybe actually we just need to, you know, volunteer at the food bank, right? Maybe we need to decide that, sure, there's some family members who drive us nuts, but also they're our family. And so you spend time with them. Like that's just a thing you do, right? Those are purposeful, intentional things because life does have meaning. Life is special, precious. Hmm. Maybe it is about an orientation towards life. This philosopher named Charles Taylor calls our modern world the age of authenticity, right? Where we try to find truth inside ourselves. So you go inward, right? Like, and I get it. Like that is important. It is important to reflect. Um, but one of the problems with sort of self actualization is that it starts with yourself. Self actualization doesn't necessarily lead to people doing good things for other people, right? I've met people before who, oh my God, they did all of the programs, all of the therapies, read all of the books. And honestly, they're kind of lousy because it was all about them, right? It was all about like their place in the universe, but it was all about their place in the universe, not about the universe. And I get it, there's people who are gonna listen to this and they're like, "Yeah, but, like, I'm so stressed out. Do I really have to go do that thing? Do I really have to be part of that such and such? Like, don't you know how hard my work is?" Family, listen, you know how many kids I got? Yeah, no, I'm with you. 100,000%. Maybe this sermon isn't for you. Like, I get it, right? Um, there's a rabbi, Nachshon Saritsky, a friend of mine, who when teaching homiletics, when teaching sermons, says, when you give one, you need to be thinking about somebody. Like, who are you speaking to? It could be I'm not speaking to you right now. That's fine. Like, listen to the one before, listen to the one after. But, um, one of the problems with this whole like going inward thing is that it doesn't necessarily change our behavior, right? Maybe meaning starts with doing stuff and from doing things, we find purpose, and from purpose, we find meaning, right? Maybe it's not what is the meaning, so what do I do? It's I'm just going to do stuff, right? They always say the hardest thing to do in the morning is to make your bed, right? That one intentional act. Like in the morning, I get my cell phone and I say modeni. Um, Not always. I'm willing to admit when I'm a hypocrite. Sometimes email comes first. I don't necessarily feel better. if I know that someone emailed me at 2 in the morning about, how I can get 50 more Starbucks points, right? That doesn't really help me. That doesn't help anybody. Um, you know, but you do these little things and maybe it helps. You don't find yourself by looking inward always, but often you find yourself by showing up. To quote a video I saw on Instagram recently, we don't find ourselves, we build ourselves. What do you think about that? We don't find ourselves, we build ourselves. Because by the way, what if the person you find is kind of lousy? Someone once asked me why have I never thought to run for public office? And my answer is very simple. If I run for public office, it would bring out the worst in me. And I would rather bring out the best in myself by living the life that I live now. That's why. Um, Perhaps that's why in the Bible you hear "Hineni," here I am, over and over again, right? It's the call, like God calls to people and they say "Hineni." And so much has been written about this "Hineni," this "here I am" phrase. Like there's whole books about "Hineni." Um, because it means more than like, yo, God, I'm over here, omniscient power of the universe that can't seem to figure out where I am and doesn't have Google Maps, or I'm not on like, the family location app. um, Hineni is about recognizing the moment and being spiritually prepared. It's this standing up. It's like, send me, God. Um, but maybe like all the homiletics, maybe all the preaching on that is kind of overdone. Maybe Hineni, maybe here I am means I'm ready to be built up, you know? Instead of Hineni being a kind of Jewish pseudo enlightenment, whatever thing, maybe it's build me up, God, just build me up. It's in the small acts of joy, of gratitude, of being part of something that outlives us. Pirkei Avot 2:16, which a lot of people really love. It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you free to neglect it. So Judaism says you don't have to fix the world, but you do have to care enough to start. And that's very important. Rule number one of social work, you can't fix the world. Like you can't save everybody, but you can do some little stuff. And from the Talmud in Brachot 17a, because I'm always quoting Brachot because it's the first section of the Talmud. It's kind of like if you only know the beginning of like the first Star Wars movie, and that's what you always talk about when you talk about Star Wars. I'll admit it, look, it is what it is. But happy is the one who toils in Torah, who grows in goodness, and whose labor is for the sake of heaven. So, in other words, meaning isn't always in the outcomes. Maybe it's in the effort that connects you to something sacred. Because here's the thing about Kahila is that we don't always get it right. We don't always solve all the problems. Sometimes the things just don't get done. Like that's just part of it sometimes. But that's okay. Did we enjoy doing it? Did it make someone's life better? Does someone have friends now because of Kahila? Does your family feel super connected spiritually? Do you go home and do you look at your kids like after the Purim party in their silly costumes and go like, yeah, this is it? Like mission accomplished? And that I don't know that it made them more Jewish, whatever that means, but like you can just go, yeah, okay, that was good. That was a start. That got us somewhere. Maybe the American crisis of meaning isn't a failure of religion. Maybe it's an invitation to rediscover it. Right? Crisis is birth. So maybe something new is being born, um, and you get to be part of it. Thanks.